Hello, I am Evangelist Gilson Gonçalves da Silva. I am a member of Cathedral of the Assembly of God in Parque São Bento, Belford Roxo, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Our president, Pastor Daniel Soares, the seventh king of Judah, better saying, usurper Queen Athaliah. It is Nessa time you subscribe to the channel, like and subscribe to notifications, but if you have time, comment what. Now let's go to the video. Athaliah, seventh queen of Judah, the usurper of throne. We will plunge into the history of often the most intriguing and shadowy figures, the monarchy of Judah. Athaliah, the seventh queen of Judah, and the only woman reigned over the southern kingdom. Its history, marked by intrigue, ambitions, and a destiny tragedy, offers valuable lessons, spiritual questions about what happens when power is sought without reverence for God. Athaliah is a complex figure who reveals the danger of seeking authority without consider the consequences of turn away from the ways of the Lord. Athaliah, she was the daughter of Ahab and Jezebel, lineage that by itself was already marked idolatry and disobedience to God. When his son, King Ahaziah of Judah, was murdered, Athaliah did not hesitate to take the throne for herself by killing all royal descendants who could. Athaliah's ambition led to a series of cruel and even killing themselves grandchildren. To ensure that his dynasty, his reign, was marked by an absolute weight, by the lineage of David, and she sought to ground her power in the covenant with the idolaters of Israel, decision that further distanced them from commandments of God. The reign of Athaliah, it brought with it a period of great spiritual degradation to Judah. His corrupt influence made the people, if he were to move further away from the worship of the God of Israel and the temples of Baal, other pagan gods spread throughout the world. The Athalian kingdom promoted the idolatry of open form, allowing these cults let the unclean prosper that has generated great wealth. Spiritual distress for the people of Judah. This environment of spiritual decay, it was only interrupted when Jehosheba, daughter of Athaliah, saved the heir rightful from the throne, Joaz, taken secretly to the temple of Jerusalem, where he was protected until he was ready to take the throne and restore the worship the God of Israel. As we have seen in the previous video, they hid Joah by 6 years. Athaliah was the daughter of Ahab, the king of Israel, and Jezebel, his wife, famous for their opposition to the worship of the God of Israel. It was in this deeply familiar environment, marked by idolatry, gave Athaliah a worship of Baal and others. Foreign gods was the central theme. Achabe and Jezebel introduced idolatrous practices who corrupted the nation of Israel, leading people away from the ways of God. Athaliah, he grew up in an environment of spiritual transgression, where the focus was in political alliances with nations, pagan, and the implementation of pagan cults. When she married Jehoram, king of Judah, she brought with her the influence corrupting the idolatrous values that he had learned from his parents. Jehoram, influenced by his wife, moved away God and led Judah to follow the wicked examples of the kingdom of Israel. Athaliah, in its new role of usurper queen, continued to propagate idolatry in the kingdom of Judah, something that weakened faith and the practice of worship of the true God. The union between Athaliah and Jehoram is the political alliances that they often compromise the present, making the leaders of Judah practices contrary to the law of God. As already observed in the northern kingdom, the impact of this union was devastating to Judah. Athaliah brought with her a vigorous impulse to idolatry, promoting pagan cults, mainly the cult of Baal, who spread throughout the kingdom. As a result, Judah came to live under the shadow of spiritual practices, corrupted by moving further and further away of the God of Israel, the reign of Jehoram and his wife. Athaliah represented a true apostasy, because your choices, politics, and spirituality have resulted in a significant departure from paths, a situation that was grievously confronted by the prophets of God as Elisha and others. This historical context, this is a clear example of how leadership, it can deeply affect fate of a nation, with far-reaching consequences for the people of God. After the death of his son Ahaziah, who briefly reigned over Judah, Athaliah saw a unique opportunity to take the power to itself by taking advantage of the political vulnerability and the vacuum of leadership after the death of Ahaziah. Athaliah hesitated to act with extreme cruelty to secure her accession to the throne. She orchestrated a brutal massacre by eliminating all the sons of the royal dynasty of calculated and remorseless manner in an effort to ensure that no legitimate heir could challenge his authority. This action reflects the nature of Athaliah, who was willing committing atrocities in the name of power, even if it meant sacrificing his own family. Athaliah, who had already raised in an environment of idolatry and spiritual corruption, brought these same values for his reign. His rise to power was marked by excessive ambition and by the disposition of do anything to stay in the throne, including the manipulation of his own blood. In your mind, the murder of his grandchildren was unnecessary to ensure its political stability. That thirst for power, no limits, resulted in a violation of divine laws, as well as his parents Ahab and Jezebel. Athaliah showed complete disregard for the right of God over dynasties and for the value of human life among victims of the Athaliah massacre. Infant grandson Joash, son of Ahaziah, who he was miraculously spared the massacre. Joash was hidden by his aunt, Jehosheba, wife of the priest Jehoiada, in an act courageous of protection and faith. While Athaliah believed that he had eradicated all the Joas, royal line was maintained in secret, hidden in the Temple of Jerusalem, protected until the right time for the restoration of the Davidic line. A Joas survival would become a fundamental part in the divine plan for restore the monarchy of Judah. When he grew up, he would be crowned king. It would bring with it the possibility of reverse the apostasy that Athaliah had. God's intervention in the kingdom through Joas demonstrates how he preserved their sovereignty even in the more desperate and dark situations. Athaliah's reign was a period of great spiritual and moral corruption. The kingdom of Judah, the Bible emphatic records that Athaliah did what she was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to Kings chapter 11 verse 18, a clear judgment about the nature of their actions, and his government was marked by a total rejection of divine principles, and instead of seeking guidance from God, Athaliah made a series of practices, idolaters to the people of Judah. With their influence, she continued, the spread of worship of Baal is one of the most abominable in the sight of God, more spiritual destruction to the nation. His leadership was not edifying, but from spiritual deterioration, driving away completely Judah of the ways of the Lord during his reign. Athaliah intensified the introduction of cults, pagans following their mother's example. Jezebel, she not only kept but probably even promoted the worship of Baal, a false god who became a symbol of the apostasy of Israel and Judah. Oh, the sin of idolatry was not evil. In isolation, it has deeply corrupted the religious life of Judah, driving the people away of the true God and creating a generation who worshipped strange gods. Athaliah prioritizes political alliances and cultures, with idolatrous nations undermining the sanctity of the Temple of Jerusalem and leading people to practice impure cults. His leadership revealed a terrible turning away from God and the impact a leader can have on nation in spiritual terms. The quest insatiable for power led Athaliah to sacrifice the holiness of the kingdom, and true worship of gods she took decisions that went against the will divine, leading the nation even further of God's truth. His leadership was self-centered, and self-centered his own desire to rule without any consideration for the people of Judah, or be the covenant that God had made with the line of David. Athaliah believed that the absolute power was more important than that faithfulness to God, what resulted in a period of great oppression, spiritual and moral. His reign in Athaliah teaches that when leadership is disconnected from God, it can lead to whole nations to spiritual decay. As happened to Judah during the years of darkness, the massacre of the family kingship and the usurpation of the throne by Athaliah had direct consequences on the fulfillment of God's covenant with the house of David. While Athaliah was established in power with its idolatrous practices, priest Jehoiada who recognized the legitimacy of the Davidic line, then he began to devise a plan for restoring the throne to the descendant, legitimate Joas, in hiding for 6 years. Joash, he was protected by his aunt Jehosheba and the Jehoiada, the priest, until he came the moment of his revelation to the people, signaling the end of Athaliah's reign. She completely disconnected from God, did not notice the signs that your government was coming to an end, ignoring the fact that God's promise to David's line would never fail. The plan, the priest Jehoiada, culminated in restoration of the kingdom of Judah, true inheritance, when Joash was presented to the people and proclaimed king. Athaliah reacted with fury, but her attempt to maintain power was in vain. The reign Athaliah founded on idolatry and violence was quickly put down, and his death represented the fulfillment of divine will, that the line of David, at the same time, action should prevail. Jehoiada reaffirmed the fidelity of God's promise to restore alliance with Judah and returning leadership to the throne. And this event reinforces the idea that no matter how much the rulers try to thwart God's divine plans, will always ensure the continuity of their promises. The final confrontation between the true leadership represented by Jehoiada, Joaz, and Athaliah became inevitable. When Joaz was proclaimed king, the true lineage of David finally emerged after 7 years of occultation, and Athaliah, already dominated by his corruption and rejection of divine principles, did not accept the legitimate restoration of the throne. Out of anger, she ordered the execution of all who opposed his reign, showing how willing she was to maintain your domain at any cost. But the end of Athaliah was sealed by the hand of divine justice, and the resistance to the restoration of David's lineage was useless. She was captured and killed by the soldiers of Jehoiada the sword, and his death symbolized the end of a kingdom founded on idolatry, and the fall from God revealed weakness of those who seek power by corrupt and selfish means without taking in consideration of divine principles. A destruction of Athaliah is a reminder of, even though the rebellion against the God's ways seemed to succeed temporarily, in the end, divine justice prevails. The story of Athaliah teaches us especially about the consequences, rejection of God, and the idolatry. She is a clear example of how the power can corrode when it is not placed under divine authority, taking the destructive decisions and actions and the search, Athaliah, unbridled by the power and the absolute control, resulted in the death of his own lineage and in the ruin of his reign, showing that when leadership fall away from divine principles, it is inevitable. Moreover, the life of Athaliah highlights the importance of fair leaders, as the priest Jehoiada, who remained faithful to the principles of God himself in the face of great adversity. Jehoiada presented true leadership spiritual that aligns with sovereignty. He sought to restore the divine order. His courage and faithfulness stand out as an example of resistance to oppression and persecution, showing that regardless of the circumstances, God's justice will prevail. Athaliah's tragic story serves as a reminder that God always restores that it is strength, that it is yours, and that your sovereignty is unwavering even in the face of the greatest challenges. Athaliah, the queen who usurped the throne of Judah, and whose reign was marked by death, idolatry, and corruption, spiritual guidance served as a warning for all rulers and leaders, both Judah and Israel. Your reign was a clear example of consequences of rejecting God and violating the divine principles that sustain a fair and true leadership. The quest, selfish for power, without reverence and obedience to God, led to destruction. Only of his own lineage, but also of order and peace of the kingdom. The fall of Athaliah reminds us of the importance of keeping God at the center of our lives, personal and collective decisions that we can learn from their mistakes, and always seek wisdom and guidance, divine both in our roles of leadership as in our daily lives. The example of Athaliah teaches us that the true leadership is based on faithfulness to God and in constant search for his righteousness and truth, that his history is a guide to avoid the same paths that led her to destruction. We seek instead wisdom that comes from above. The history of the queen who ruled Judah iron hands is a powerful reminder of, as the power when sought without the God's word can lead to corruption and destruction. His reign, marked by idolatry and murder, left an indelible mark on the history of Judah, teaching us about the dangers of away from divine principles. In the fall of Athaliah, it shows the sovereignty of God that restores what is yours and brings justice even when all seems lost. May we learn from this life story and its tragedia. See, we want to lead fairly and faithfully, we must always put God at the center of our choices and actions, and that the search for power does not make us forget true authority that comes from God. You there? Did you like the video? So leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the Tinkerbell to don't miss any content. Share this video with whom you know, because he can learn as you have learned, and follow more stories that teach us living according to divine principles. Join us on this journey of faith and wisdom. Until our next meeting, God in control.